Welcome to the Voice of Freedom, your national beacon of liberty. Now, here's your Voice of Freedom, Brent Johnson.
My guest today is Orly Tates. She is the attorney who represented Gail Lightfoot in her challenge to California Secretary of State Deborah Bowen regarding Barack Obama's ineligibility to be president. She is also representing Ambassador Alan Keyes in his cases on this issue, as well as working on several others, all designed to bring out Barack Obama's ineligibility to be president. Welcome to the Voice of Freedom, Orly Tates.
Thank you.
You've been working on these cases challenging Barack Obama's constitutional eligibility to be president. In the case of Lightfoot versus Bowen, the one that last week the Supreme Court decided they wouldn't hear, what was the basis used in that case?
Well, first of all, I wanted to correct you on the fact that the Supreme Court did not decide that they will not hear the case. The case has two parts. If you look at the docket, it shows that so far they only had an application for an emergency stay pending filing of writ of certiorari. It was read originally by Chief Justice John Roberts, and he had an option of either denying the case or sending it to the conference of the full Supreme Court. He did not deny the case, and he sent it to the conference of the full Supreme Court. From that moment, they could send the petition for stay to the oral hearing that can be heard from the public, and that did not happen. However, this is only the first part of the case. This is only application for emergency stay, but the other part of the case, writ of certiorari, has not been done yet. This is yet to be filed and reviewed. So that's where this case stands. But both Supreme Court of California and Supreme Court of the United States did not provide any explanation. The only thing that I got from them was one word: denied. And I feel that American citizens deserve more than that. We are paying huge salaries to all of those justices. They have a huge staff that we, the taxpayers, are supporting. And we deserve to know, why did they deny it? Based on what? No explanation was given in either court. And as a matter of fact, what has been happening with all of Obama ineligibility litigation, Obama has been bragging and saying, oh, we debanked everything, we won all the cases. No, they didn't win anything because no case was ever heard on the merits. Nothing was ever heard on the merits yet.
And that is exactly my next point here. I know that my listeners, I know me in particular, we are very frustrated at the way this system seems to be treating something as crucial as the eligibility of a candidate to be president. The Supreme Court has disregarded rule of law and refused to address any challenges to Obama's declared birth status. That basically means we now have an illegitimate president. Now, my question for you is, first off, and I'm thrilled to hear that the Lightfoot case is not dead and gone. But assuming the Supreme Court continues its pattern, it will be at some point. And when that happens, what legal maneuvers, if any, are left to pursue? There are millions of Americans from all political parties who want the truth exposed. And we want to know if there's any remaining chance they'll ever see justice done in this or any other case concerning Obama's birth.
Yes, absolutely. And if your listeners can go on my blog, I do explain what they can do to expose all of this massive fraud and achieve justice. And just as I explained to you earlier, I do have 4 cases that are currently challenging Obama's eligibility. Aside from Lightfoot v. Bowen, there is also Keyes v. Bowen, where I'm working with one more attorney, Gary Creed, and that's from state court. There is another case on behalf of Ambassador Keyes. That case I filed by myself. I'm the only attorney, and that's in federal court. And just recently, a judge in Texas has allowed me to represent a plaintiff by name Jody Brockhausen. And what happened in that case, Jody has filed her case pro se on her own without an attorney. She used sort of a template that a lot of citizens all over the country used And the response from the Secretary of State via Attorney General of the state of Texas was that the case should be dismissed because there is no jurisdiction. And Jody asked me to come and help her, and she has called and written a lot of attorneys all over the country. And unfortunately, I believe we have probably 3 million attorneys in this country, and only 3 are defending the Constitution of this country. And that's pretty sad, and I hope more attorneys will join me in that endeavor. But I flew to Texas, and that day I was filing a supplemental brief of my own in the Supreme Court, and I worked till the evening, and I arrived in Dallas at 12:30 at night. One of the volunteers picked me up. We drove to 4 o'clock in the morning to Roundstone, which is suburbs of Georgetown. And in the morning, we were in the courtroom, and the judge asked Attorney General, how much time do you need? And this assistant had 3 assistant attorney generals in the courtroom. She said 15, 20 minutes. His response was, well, I need only 3 minutes for this one. And I was appalled. It was totally despicable, in my opinion, that this judge, Burt Karn, in the state of Texas, needed only 3 minutes for a case of national and world importance to find out who is Barack Obama. And you could tell that his decision was made. He wanted to dismiss the case. He did not even ask the plaintiff if she would like to talk, if she would like to present her side of the story. So I stood up and I explained to him that I flew and drove all night long to be here to represent her pro bono, to help her in this case. And originally he, of course, said, well, you're not a Texas attorney, so sit down, be quiet. Then I stood up again and said, I have this form, pro hoc vice, which would allow me to represent her being an out-of-state attorney. And again, he said, well, I didn't sign it for you. Sit down, be quiet. So finally I stood up again and said, well, there is nothing preventing you from signing it now. So he kind of kicked me out of the courtroom, but then he realized I called a radio station just like yours and asked for a few volunteers, a few patriots to come and be there with me because I knew what was going on. And one of them was a reporter of this radio station. And the judge could see that he went too far, and his clerk asked me if I will give the forms, and after kind of begrudgingly, he signed my forms. He allowed me to represent her. But his point was there is no jurisdiction. And I said, okay, all the cases in federal courts were dismissed because the judges feel that there is no jurisdiction in federal court to hear this type of cases. But if you're telling me there is no jurisdiction in state courts, then the citizens of this country have no way to redress their grievances in either federal or state courts. They're de facto turned into slaves. They have to work. They have to pay taxes.
I just think that you're incredible. People are listening to this, and they're going, wow, she is incredible, that you basically stood the judge down and you use the exact correct tactics, which is you get the press involved and you get the people involved so that the judge can't do what he does without people knowing about it. That is just fantastic. We're speaking with Orly Tates, attorney for several of the cases challenging Barack Obama's eligibility to be president of the United States. Now, I have a hypothetical question. If Obama was somehow disqualified as president, considering that would mean that the Obama-Biden ticket was invalid from inception, would Joe Biden take over or not?
On the one hand, we do have the Constitution, according to which if the president did not qualify, the vice president would be an acting president until the president qualifies or another qualified president is found. So we do have a provision in the Constitution for this situation. However, we never had somebody who is a foreign citizen like Obama become a president, so it is uncharted territory. And there is a possibility that the Supreme Court would find that the whole ticket wasn't valid. There is a possibility maybe we will have a runoff election, a new election. That's a possibility, and it will be probably up to the Supreme Court. But what I wanted to explain that there are other things that the citizens of this country can do, because as we walked out from the courtroom of Judge Carnes in Texas, I have told the volunteers that were with me, I